I want to start today with a little word association. Just one phrase. Ready.
I am always ready.
Fairy story?
Ah, okay. I see where we're going with this.
Be honest. What's just popped into your head? Was it, Tinkerbell? Some kind of glittery pink-winged creature hovering over a tulip?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe something from a Disney movie where there's a lot of singing and really very little actual danger.
If I were a typical modern reader, yes. That is exactly what I would picture. You know, something cute, diminutive, totally safe, the kind of thing you read to a toddler to help them sleep.
Right, and that is the problem. Because today we're diving into the work of J.R.R. Tolkien, specifically a collection called Tales from the Perilous Realm. And if there's one thing we need to get straight right out of the gate, it's that Tolkien absolutely despised that Tinkerbell version of fantasy.
Despised is absolutely the right word. He loathed it. He really thought the Victorian era had done this massive disservice to mythology by shrinking it.
Shrinking it?
Yeah.
How do you mean?
They took these powerful, ancient concepts, elves, goblins, the supernatural, and they basically turned them into garden ornaments, little statues.
So we're here to smash the garden ornaments. We've got a great stack of sources today. The book Tales from the Perilous Realm itself. We're going to focus on two stories in particular, Roverandom and Farmer Giles of Ham, and also a brilliant introduction by Tom Shippey, who is, he's basically the heavyweight champion of Tolkien scholarship.
Oh, Shippey is essential here. You can't really get to the heart of this without him. He provides the roadmap for understanding that for Tolkien, Faërie, and we should probably note he spells it with that old medieval E, F-A-E-R-I-E.
Right.
It wasn't a creature, it was a place, it was a realm.
The Perilous Realm.
Precisely, and the key word there is perilous. It is not safe. It is not designed for us, for humans. It's a land of dragons, yes, but also of this deep, almost indifferent power. Yeah, and Shippey makes this great point that the best fairy stories aren't really about the fairies at all. They're about the human adventurer who stumbles into that realm. It's about the collision between our world where, we have taxes and gravity and bedtimes and their world where all those rules just, poof, they dissolve.
That feels like the difference between, say, looking at a lion in a zoo versus bumping into one in the tall grass.
That is a perfect analogy, a perfect one. In the Victorian view, the lion is safely behind glass. In Tolkien's view, the glass is gone. If you eat the food in Faërie, you might be trapped there forever. If you step off the path, you might never find your way back. It's a trap just as much as it is a wonderland.
And what really surprised me reading the introduction is where this fascination came from for him. You'd think Tolkien just loved this stuff as a kid, right?
Oh, yeah. You'd picture him as the boy running around the woods looking for elves.
Exactly, but that's not it at all.
Actually, no. Shippey points out that Tolkien wasn't particularly interested in fairies as a child. His interest was intellectual first. It came from philology.
Okay, we need to pause on that word. Philology, we hear it all the time with Tolkien. He was a philologist. It means the study of languages, but I feel like that definition is just too dry. It sounds like doing grammar drills. How does studying language lead to dragons?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And for Tolkien, philology wasn't just grammar, it was more like archaeology. He believed that words were like fossils.
Fossil.
Yeah. If you dig up an old word, like the Old English word for dragon, draka, or elf, you aren't just finding a collection of letters, you're finding a cultural memory. The word itself holds the history of the people who used it, the world they saw.
So he's digging into the dictionary and finding monsters buried in the pages.
He's finding the perilous realm buried inside the language itself. He realized that our language suggested a world that used to exist, at least in the minds of our ancestors. And then, of course, there's the other big factor, war.
World War I.
Yes. He said his love for this realm was quickened to full life by war.
That is such a heavy phrase, quickened to full life. It sort of implies that the trenches, the absolute horror of the somehow made the need for fantasy more urgent.
It did, but not as an escape from reality, not in the sense of a soldier just running away from it all. It was more a way to find a different perspective on reality.
Okay.
When the actual world is a muddy, bloody nightmare, you need a realm where there's meaning, where there's clear good and evil, where heroism actually matters. It's a search for truth, not just a distraction.
Before we get into the stories of dogs and farmers, we have to talk about Niggle. The source material spends a lot of time on a short story called Leaf by Niggle. And honestly, when I first read it, I thought, what? What is this? It's not an adventure. It's about a guy painting. A very meticulous guy painting.
It is the skeleton key to Tolkien's entire brain. I'm not exaggerating. You cannot understand Middle-earth without understanding Niggle.
Okay, so walk us through it. Who is this Niggle?
Niggle is a painter, but he's not, a famous artist. He's a niggler. It's in the name. He obsesses over tiny, tiny details. He decides he wants to paint a picture of a leaf. Just one leaf.
That sounds manageable.
You would think so. But he looks at the leaf and he sees the dew on the edge. He sees the way the light hits the veins. So he paints that. But then he realizes that for the leaf to make sense, well, it needs a twig.
And the twig needs a branch.
And the branch needs a tree. And the tree needs a forest behind it. And the forest needs mountains in the distance. And suddenly, this tiny project has just exploded into a massive mural that's covering his entire wall.
And he can't finish it.
No, because life keeps getting in the way. His neighbors knock on the door asking for help. He has civic duties. He catches a cold. And all the while, looming over him is this long journey he knows he has to take.
Which is a metaphor for death, obviously.
Exactly. He dies with the picture unfinished. And in the real world, the canvas it's used to patch a leaky roof. The only thing that survives is a little scrap with that one original leaf on it.
It sounds incredibly depressing when you put it that way. It sounds like a story about failure.
It is a story about the anxiety of creation. Because Tolkien is Niggle. That's the key.
This is the connection. Tolkien is the guy who starts with a leaf and ends up with an entire world.
Think about how he worked. He didn't sit down one day and say, I am going to write a trilogy called The Lord of the Rings. Not at all. He started with a language, or a name, or a specific image. He started with a leaf.
Right.
And then he realized the language needed speakers. The speakers needed a history. The history needed a geography.
So Middle-earth is the tree that grew out of that first leaf.
It is. And this leads to a pretty controversial point that Shippey makes in the introduction. He argues that almost everything Tolkien published, including The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, were, in a sense, spin-offs.
I have to push back on that a little bit. Calling The Lord of the Rings a spin-off just feels wrong. It's the main event. It's his magnum opus. How can the main event be a spin-off?
It feels wrong to us, I get that, because we see the books as the primary product. But to Tolkien, I think the primary product was the mythology itself, the Silmarillion material. The history of the elves, the creation of the world, the tragic wars of the First Age. He'd been working on that since 1917. That was his great tree.
Okay, so then The Hobbit.
The Hobbit started as a completely separate thing. It was a bedtime story for his kids. But because Tolkien was a niggler, he couldn't keep the worlds separate. As he was writing The Hobbit, he needed a sword for Gandalf. He didn't just invent a new sword out of thin air.
No, he reached into his mythology.
He reached into his great tree mythology, and he pulled out Glamdring, the sword from the lost city of Gondolin.
He tacked the bedtime story onto the edge of the serious epic mythology.
Exactly. He stitched them together. And that is why the world feels so incredibly deep. When you read The Hobbit, you feel the weight of thousands of years of history, because that history actually existed in Tolkien's mind before he ever wrote the first sentence about a hole in the ground.
That makes so much sense. It's organic. It's not world building by committee. It's world building by accretion.
And that brings us perfectly to Roverandom, because if The Hobbit is a leaf that became a branch, Roverandom is a leaf that, well, it went to the moon.
I absolutely loved reading the background for this story. It's so human. It's 1925. The Tolkien family's on vacation in Faërie in Yorkshire.
A classic British seaside holiday, which usually implies, a cold wind, gray skies, and sand in your sandwiches.
Totally. And Tolkien has a 5-year-old son, Michael.
Yeah.
And Michael has a favorite toy.
A little lead dog, painted white with black spots.
Now, anyone who has kids, or who has been a kid, knows the status of the favorite toy. It is not just an object. It's a best friend. It is a talisman.
It is the single most important thing in the world. And Michael takes this tiny white dog down to the beach, a beach covered in white pebbles.
Oh, no. You can see where this is going.
He puts it down and he turns around, and it's gone. It's perfectly camouflaged among the stones. They search for hours, but the storm rolls in, the tide comes up, and the beach is just washed clean.
The toy is gone forever. Michael is devastated.
He is heartbroken. Now, most fathers would handle this very practically, I'm so sorry, son. Let's go to the shop. We'll get you a toy soldier this time.
But Tolkien is not most fathers. He is a myth maker. He sees his son's grief, and he decides to fix it. Not with a new toy, but with a story.
He tells Michael, you didn't lose him. He wasn't washed away. He was enchanted. He's gone on an adventure.
And thus, Roverandom is born. It's a rescue mission, but narrated.
And what a mission it is. The story starts with the real dog, Rover. He's a puppy. He's playing in the garden with a yellow ball. And he's a bit of a brat.
He's sassy.
He is. He sees a wizard walking up the path.
Artaxerxes.
A Persian wizard who got lost and somehow ended up in Pershore.
I have to stop you there. That's the philology joke again, isn't it? Persian. Pershore.
It is. Tolkien just couldn't resist. He's taking a real English town name and deriving a wizard from it. So Rover barks at Artaxerxes. And then he makes a catastrophic error. He bites the wizard's trousers.
I feel like there should be a sign, Rule 1, do not bite the wizard.
It's a fundamental rule of survival in the Perilous Realm. But Rover is a dog. He doesn't know the rules. And Artaxerxes is having a bad day. He's grumpy, and he just snaps. He shouts, "Idiot, go and be a toy!"
And poof, zap.
Rover shrinks. He turns into a toy dog. He's stiff. He can't move. He eventually gets sold in a shop, bought by a mother, and given to a little boy.
Who represents Michael, his son?
Right. But then he falls out of the boy's pocket on the beach. And this is where the genius of the story kicks in, because to us, a beach is just a beach. But in the Perilous Realm, the beach is a borderland. It's the edge of the world.
I mean, it's a sand sorcerer.
Symathides, which is just Greek for sandy son of sand. He's this ancient elemental spirit. He's grumpy. He hates being woken up, but he's not cruel. He sees this enchanted dog and decides to send him to safety.
And safety, in this case, means the moon.
Obviously. Where else would you go?
He catches a ride on a seagull named Mew, and they fly up the moon path, that silver reflection of the moon on the ocean. I love that image because every kid has seen that path on the water and wondered if you can walk on it.
Tolkien takes that childhood wonder and makes it literal. But once they get to the moon, the perilous aspect comes right back. This isn't just a dead rock. It's a kingdom.
It's incredibly whimsical. There's a white tower made of seashells. There's the man in the moon, who is a sort of benevolent, eccentric magician. And there's another dog there.
A moon dog, also named Rover.
Which creates a bit of a logistical problem.
The man in the moon says, "We can't have two Rovers, so I'll call you Roverandom. Because you arrived at random."
It's charming. But let's look at the ecology of the moon here. The book describes transparent butterflies, giant white dragon moths, sword flies. It sounds beautiful, but also sharp.
It's crystalline. It's fragile but dangerous. And Tolkien doesn't shy away from the dark side, literally the dark side of the moon.
This is where the children go when they're dreaming.
Yes, but it's also where the nightmares live. There are things called shadow bats. There are gray spiders who want to wrap the dog up and pickle him.
That pickling detail really stuck with me. It's such a domestic threat. I'm going to put you in a jar. It's almost scarier than just being eaten.
It's the uncanny, isn't it? It's taking the kitchen and making it horrific. But the biggest threat on the moon, by far, is the great white dragon.
Now, dragons are Tolkien's signature move. Is this just a random monster he threw in there for some excitement?
Never. With Tolkien, it's never just a dragon. Shippey points out that this is very likely the white dragon of the Merlin legend, the one from the prophecy that fought the red dragon of Wales. This is deep, deep British folklore. Tolkien is taking a heavy ancient myth and dropping it into a story about a lost toy.
And the dogs.
Oh.
They just tease it.
They do. They bait it. They chase butterflies right under its nose.
Which seems wildly irresponsible.
It is. But think about how children play. They love the thrill of the near miss. You can't catch me. It's that feeling of dancing on the edge of the volcano. The dragon chases them, breathing this fire that turns things to stone or ice, and they barely escape back to the tower.
So Roverandom has his fun. He even gets a pair of wings. He hunts moon butterflies. But eventually the novelty wears off. He remembers the boy. He wants to go home.
Which is the heart of the story, really. The adventure is great, but the goal is recovery. He wants to be a real dog again. And to do that, he has to find Artaxerxes, the wizard who cursed him in the first place.
Who has inconveniently moved.
He's left Pershore. He's now at the bottom of the ocean.
So we go from the highest height to the deepest deep. Roverandom hitches a ride on a whale.
Uin, the oldest of right whales. And again, just notice the weight of history there. This isn't just a whale. It's the oldest whale. It feels like he swam right out of the Silmarillion.
They dive down to the Mer King's palace, and we find Artaxerxes. And this is my favorite part of the story because it's just pure satire.
It really is. Artaxerxes has married a mermaid, a princess named Pam, and he has been given a job. He is now the Pacific and Atlantic magician. The Pam.
The acronyms.
Yeah.
It feels so modern and bureaucratic.
It is surprisingly modern. Artaxerxes is wearing a plum-colored suit and a green hat underwater, and he's surrounded by paperwork, or I guess waterwork. His job is to manage the ocean's affairs, regulate the tides, control the storms, deal with fish complaints.
And he hates it.
He absolutely loathes it. He's incompetent, he's overwhelmed, and he just wants a quiet life. This is Tolkien poking fun at bureaucracy. Even in a magical underwater kingdom, someone has to push the paper, and that person is miserable.
And then Roverandom, who, let's be honest, has not learned a single lesson about impulse control, decides to bite a shark.
It's the dog in him. He sees a shark, he bites it. It's just instinct. But this isn't the garden anymore. The shark gets mad and bites another shark. The fight spreads, the water churns, and all this commotion wakes up. Something else.
The sea serpent?
And again, this isn't just a big eel. This is the Midgard serpent. This is Jormungandr from Norse mythology. The snake that is so big it encircles the entire globe and bites its own tail.
So let me just get this straight. A 5-year-old loses a toy. Tolkien invents a story where the toy dog bites a shark, which wakes up the Norse world serpent, which then threatens to destroy the continents with massive storms.
That is the spin-off effect in full glory. A domestic accident triggers an apocalyptic event. The Perilous Realm is connected to everything. A butterfly flaps its wings, or a dog bites a shark, and the entire world shakes.
That's terrifying.
It is.
So how do they survive? Does Artaxerxes have some big magical battle with the serpent?
Good heavens, no. Artaxerxes is a bureaucrat. He panics. He wants this dog gone. So he immediately agrees to lift the curse just to get Roverandom out of his ocean. He turns him back into a normal size. Rover floats to the surface, washes up on the beach, and the boy finds him.
The dream ends.
Or begins. The boy picks up the toy. To the parents, it's just a toy that washed back in with the tide. A lucky break. But to the boy, and to us, the reader, we know he's been to the moon. We know he's ridden on the oldest whale.
It changes the way you look at the toy. It's no longer just a piece of lead and some paint. It's a traveler. It has a history.
That is the gift Tolkien gave his son. He gave the lost object a dignity it didn't have before.
That is beautiful. Now, I want to pivot,
Yes.
because while Roverandom is sweet and whimsical, the next story in our stack feels different. It feels punchier, more cynical, maybe.
Farmer Giles of Ham.
Yes. If Roverandom is a lullaby, Farmer Giles is a drinking song in a crowded pub.
That is a very apt description. It's set in the Little Kingdom, which is effectively the Thames Valley in England, but in a vague, legendary past, sometime before King Arthur.
And our hero is Farmer Giles. But hero is a really strong word.
He is the anti-hero. He is the anti-Aragorn.
Describe him for us.
Well, his real name is Aegidius Ahenobarbus Julius Agricola de Hamo, which is incredibly grand Latin, but of course everyone just calls him Giles.
Right.
He has a red beard, he's fat, he moves slowly, he wears a wide felt hat, he loves his toast, he loves his strong ale, and his ambition in life is precisely zero. He just wants to be left alone.
He sounds like a hobbit, actually.
Very much so. But unlike a hobbit, he's not cute, he's a bit grumpy and cynical, and he has a dog, Garm.
We have to talk about Garm. In Roverandom, the dogs were brave. Heroic, even. Garm is not brave.
Garm is a realist. He can talk, but only in the vulgar tongue, meaning everyday English. And he mostly uses his speech to yell, "Help, help," or to tattle on people. He's a coward, he's a glutton, and he's absolutely hilarious.
So the trouble starts with a giant.
A giant who is deaf and nearsighted. He's out for a walk, gets lost, and stumbles into Giles's fields. He's crushing the hedges, stepping on the crops. He even steps on the cow, Galathea.
Flat as a pancake.
It's tragic comedy. Garm is screaming his head off. Giles wakes up furious. He doesn't grab a magic sword. He grabs a blunderbuss.
Now, for those who don't know their firearms history, what exactly is he holding?
It's a primitive kind of shotgun with a really wide mouth, like a trumpet. But Giles doesn't have proper ammunition. He hasn't loaded it in years, so he frantically stuffs it with whatever is lying around in the kitchen.
The source is old nails, bits of wire, pieces of broken pot, bones, and stones.
It's a shrapnel cannon made of literal garbage. He goes out, trembling in his nightshirt, sees the giant's face rising over the hill like a full moon, and just pulls the trigger. Bang! He hits him. By sheer dumb luck, a piece of pot hits the giant in the eye, a nail in his nose.
And the giant dies. Is that it?
No, he's a giant. He barely feels it. He thinks he's walked into a swarm of aggressive horseflies. He says nasty, unhealthy parts, rubs his face, turns around, and walks away.
But the village was watching.
And this is the turning point. They see the giant flee. They assume Giles has blasted him with some mighty magic or immense courage. Suddenly, Giles is the hero of the countryside.
Which is the worst possible outcome for a man whose life goals are drinking beer and sleeping.
Reputation is a burden. The king hears about it. Augustus Bonifacius, a king who sits in a fancy court miles and miles away. He sends a letter written in red ink, very official, congratulating Giles. And he sends a gift. A sword.
Called Mordax.
Tailbiter.
But Giles, being a practical farmer, just sees an old, heavy piece of metal. He probably shoves it in a cupboard, uses it to hang his coat on.
Exactly, until the dragon comes.
Chrysophlax dives.
Goldguard the Rich.
This dragon is my favorite character in the whole book. He is not a beast. He is a gentleman.
He is a snob. He's an aristocrat. He hears a rumor that knights are mythical in the little kingdom, that they don't really exist anymore. So he thinks, excellent, an easy meal, a buffet. He flies down to raid the villages.
And the villagers naturally turn to their giant slayer.
We look to you, Master Egidius, they all say, and Giles is just sweating bullets. He is making every excuse in the book. My mare is lame. It's lambing season. Oh, I have a terrible cold.
He is desperate to avoid this fight.
But the person, the village priest, who represents all the book learning, he looks at Giles's sword. And he realizes it's not just any sword, it's Tailbiter. It's a legendary weapon made specifically to kill dragons. It leaps out of its sheath whenever a dragon is near.
So Giles is trapped. He has a reputation, he has the weapon, he has to go.
The village dresses him up, and the description of his armor is just pure comedy. He wears a leather jerkin with some old steel rings stitched onto it. It's basically homemade chainmail. He puts on an old helmet, but, and this is the genius detail, he puts his old felt hat over the helmet.
Why? Why would he do that?
Because he doesn't want to look like a knight. He wants to look like a farmer. He wants the element of surprise, but he also just wants to be himself. It's the triumph of the rustic over the chivalric.
So he rides out on his gray mare, and he literally bumps into the dragon.
The dragon is just lying in the road, blocking the way, and he speaks. Good morning, he says. You seem surprised.
The politeness. It's so disarming.
It's a negotiation tactic. The dragon is trying to psych him out. Giles is terrified. He drops the sword. He bends down to pick it up. And the sword takes over. It just flashes out and strikes the dragon on the wing.
And the dragon, who is actually a massive coward, panics.
He realizes this isn't just a farmer. This is a man with a proper dragon-slaying sword. He turns and runs. And what follows isn't a heroic duel. It's a chase scene. A fat farmer on a mare chasing a crippled dragon down a country lane yelling, "Tally-ho!" like he's fox hunting.
They chase him right into the village square. The dragon gets cornered against the church. And then they negotiate.
And this is where the satire gets really sharp. The villagers could kill the dragon, but they don't.
Why not?
Greed. If you kill the dragon, all you have is a carcass. If you let him live, he can bring you his treasure. So they haggle. It's purely transactional. The dragon offers 10 pounds for every person.
What about the dogs? Asked Garm.
Gold collars for the dogs, promises the dragon. He promises them the moon. He swears by Hilarius and Felix that he will return in 8 days with all the loot.
And the villagers, being greedy but also very naive, let him go.
The blacksmith is the only one who spots the problem. He says, Hilarius and Felix. Ominous names. Because, of course, the dragon is lying. He has no conscience. He flies home, heals his wing, and just sits there.
No gold, no collars.
Nothing. And now the king gets involved.
The king who did absolutely nothing when the dragon was eating people.
Exactly. But now that there's a promise of treasure, suddenly the king is very interested. He claims all the treasure belongs to the crown by law. He rides out with his knights to go collect it.
And he drags Giles along for the ride.
The contrast here is just brilliant. The knights are all in shiny armor with plumes on their helmets, singing songs about dragon slaying. They treat it like a parade. And Giles is just trudging along on his mare, knowing this is going to go badly.
And it does. They reach the mountains. The dragon is waiting for them.
And he's not polite anymore. He's mad. He ambushes them. The knights panic. Their horses bolt. It is a total rout. The so-called chivalry of the court just evaporates the moment there is real danger.
But not the gray mare.
The mare is the real MVP of this story. She's stubborn, she plants her feet, she refuses to run, and because she stays, Giles stays.
And the dragon sees him.
Excuse me, says the dragon, were you looking for me?
And in that moment, something in Giles changes. He realizes the king is useless. The knights are frauds. He is the only one left standing there.
He snaps, He says, I have a bone to pick with you, and he draws Tailbiter.
And he bullies the dragon.
He does. He marches the dragon back into the cave and demands the treasure. More, he says. Try harder. He makes the dragon carry all the gold himself.
He turns the dragon into a moving van.
A pentechnicon. That's the exact word Tolkien uses. It's an old word for a large van used for furniture removal. The image of a majestic imperial dragon being used as a U-Haul is just delightful.
But then comes the big twist. They march back down the mountain. The king sees them coming. He thinks, my gold.
And Giles just rides straight past him. He takes all the gold to his own farm.
This is a revolution.
It is a peasant revolt in miniature. The king demands the gold. Giles orders the dragon to poke his head out of the barn. The dragon snorts, and the king's soldiers run away.
And Giles declares independence.
And essentially, he becomes the lord of the little kingdom, then the earl. Eventually, he becomes the king.
It's the rise of the yeoman, the common man.
That's the class commentary here. Tolkien is clearly siding with the vulgar, the common man, the farmer, the one who speaks English, not fancy court Latin. He's saying that practical wisdom is worth more than courtly pretension.
And Giles is a good king.
He is. He doesn't build fancy palaces. He brings prosperity to the land, and he keeps the dragon in the barn as a sort of, nuclear deterrent.
It's such a satisfying ending, and it explains the local geography, right? The village becomes Worminghall.
The Hall of the Wormor, or the Dragon. It grounds the myth in the real English landscape. It's feigned history.
So we've looked at two stories here. Roverandom. A lost toy goes to the moon and comes back. Farmer Giles. A lazy farmer tames a dragon and becomes king. They feel very different in tone, but you're saying they share a common DNA.
They share the DNA of eucatastrophe.
Okay, we need to unpack that word. It's a very Tolkien word. I've never heard it anywhere else.
It is. Break it down. Eu comes from Greek, meaning good. Catastrophe usually means a sudden downturn, a disaster. But Tolkien argued that in a good fairy story, you need the opposite. You need a good catastrophe.
A sudden, joyous turn.
Exactly. It's that moment when all hope is lost, the knights have fled, the dragon is looming, the hero is about to fail, and suddenly the mare stands firm, the sword flashes, the underdog wins. It's not just a happy ending, it's a surprise victory that feels like grace.
In Roverandom, it's the moment the boy finds the toy on the beach.
The restoration of what was lost. Eucatastrophe denies the finality of defeat. It says, no, the story doesn't end in darkness. It's a fundamental part of his Christian worldview, really.
And both stories are cooked in what Shippey calls the soup of story.
I love that metaphor, the soup of story. Imagine a giant pot. Into that pot you throw history. You throw Arthurian legend. You throw Norse myths about sea serpents. You throw your own family vacation to Faërie. You throw the landscape of Oxfordshire. And you just let it boil.
And what you ladle out is something new, but it tastes like all those old things. It has a familiar flavor.
That is feigned history. It feels real because the ingredients are real.
There's one final concept I want to touch on from the introduction. Shippey talks about recovery. He says fairy stories aren't about escaping reality. They are about recovering a clear view of it.
He calls it cleaning your windows.
What does that mean, practically?
Well, think about a tree. You walk past the same tree every day on your way to work. You stop seeing it. It's just background. It's data.
Right. It's just there.
But then you read Tolkien. You read about the Ents, the tree shepherds. You read Leaf by Niggle. And the next time you walk past that tree, you really see it. You see the texture of the bark, the pattern of the leaves, the life in it. The fantasy has made the reality visible again.
So Roverandom helps us see the dignity and the history in a child's lost toy. And Farmer Giles helps us see the history hidden in a local hill or a village name.
It restores the wonder to the world. That is the true function of the Perilous Realm. It doesn't take you away from the world. It brings you back to it with your eyes wide open.
That is a powerful idea, that we need dragons to really understand farmers.
We do. We need the fantastic to see the mundane clearly.
The source material ends with this thought that has been rattling around in my head ever since I read it. It suggests that our ordinary world might just be a collection of forgotten myths, that the places we live are literally built on the bones of these old stories.
It's a haunting thought, isn't it? If Farmer Giles is an origin story for Oxfordshire, what is the origin story for where you live, for your town?
It makes me wonder if we are living in the Perilous Realm right now. We just call it reality because we've forgotten the names of the giants.
We've forgotten how to spot them, but they're still there. The stories are still there under the surface.
So, the takeaway for you listening today.
Clean your windows. Look at your local legends. Look at that old toy in the attic. Don't just see the object. See the history. See the soup that it came from.
And maybe, just maybe, keep a blunderbuss loaded with broken pottery by the door. You never know.
And never ever bite a wizard.
Good advice to live by. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's been a perilous journey, but a fun one.
It has indeed.
See you in the next realm.